All right, today we've got Magenta Pixie with us, another listener recommendation. She's been writing, she's written a few books. She's been channeling the white-winged collective consciousness of 9, talking about, the new Earth and the solstice here and our shift, the shift that we need to happen. And we're going to chat about all her work and her videos. She's got a website, magentapixie.com. So it's really good to have you here. Thanks again for your patience with setting this all up. Really appreciate it.
Oh, no, that's fine. That's cool. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, we were just chatting a little bit earlier about what we want to talk about. And I don't know where you want to start. I mean, I think listeners, we've sort of straddled this area a little bit in the show. We talk about so many different topics, and some of it touches on the new age, and some of it broaches the truther sort of type stuff. And I really want to get into that, sort of the different groups that need to come together at this time. But I think we should start off a little bit about your channeling and your background and stuff, and maybe just give listeners a little bit of that.
Okay, great. Well, I kind of fell into this really. I grew up with a father who was a hypnotherapist, a hypnotist. He was actually an opera singer, but he did backstage stage hypnotist, and then he went into doing hypnotherapy. So as I was a child, when I was little, he would take me into hypnosis. So I was around that a lot as a child. But my parents split up, so I went for a long time without seeing him. So it wasn't something that was continuous. I always felt whenever I saw my father, we'd get into these conversations and everything would change. And I would feel so different and feel energized, almost as though I'd entered another reality. And this started very, very, very young. My parents split up when I was 7. So when I would see my father as young as 7, 8 years old, I would have this feeling, but did not understand what it meant. So it was around me as a child. Fast forward to my early 30s, after much synchronicity and all sorts of strange things happening in my life that would take hours to go into, and some very unpleasant and challenging experiences as well. I made the conscious decision to do what is called channeling. I had read about spirit guides and how you could contact them. I found this little book called Channeling, which showed exercises, which were meditations. So I followed these meditations and eventually made this connection with this being, this light being, this spirit guide. At first, I could only communicate with him in meditation. And then after a very short while, without realizing that would happen, I thought I'd have to remain in meditation to be able to communicate. One day I was with my brother, he asked me a question, and I thought I'd have to go into meditation to answer him. And then this guide, this spirit guide, who told me he was a 5th dimensional entity, was with me. I could feel him and hear him without having to go into meditation. So that's when the channeling started. That was 1993. I established a very close link with this being quite quickly, with my brother as a facilitator. And it wasn't long before he was telling us that we had a role to play and there was a reason why we had incarnated here. And he spoke about shifts and changes on this planet. Mm-hmm. Because I was doing a lot of drama at the time. I'd been doing drama and theatre. My parents were both, in the theatre, so I'd kind of grown up with it. Mm-hmm. So he used theatre language, and he'd say to me, this is a dress rehearsal for what is going to happen. This is a dress rehearsal. I realised it.
Like for you, it's a dress rehearsal, or for all of us on Earth right now?
At that time, he was meaning it for me and my brother, because he was communicating to us about what was happening to us. I've since found out that 1993 was actually a dress rehearsal for a great many people, but I had no idea at the time. But if you listen to a lot of people, they often mention, this all started in 1993. And I think, wow, that's the same year. So there was something going on in that year. That was dress rehearsal year. But the White Spirit, this entity, was using theatre language in order to communicate with me. So I knew how important a dress rehearsal was. So I took it very, very seriously, and we were going through daily synchronicity, and it was like a mini ascension experience. But after about 6 months of this amazing time in our lives, things started to kind of go back to normal, what I would now call 3D. And it wasn't long before I forgot about those messages. I stopped believing that something was going to happen and that this planet was going to change. I never stopped communicating with White Spirit. I would sometimes go long periods without speaking to him when I was going through particularly challenging 3D times, and then I would turn to him and then the channeling would start again. I did readings for friends. I kept what I did very, very, very quiet. Mm-hmm. And then that time I was waiting for them. They said, White Spirit said he would let me know when it was showtime. So I was expecting this to be, a few months. And as I said, it was 1993. Around the year 2000, I was told that there would be an upgrade with my guidance system. White Spirit was leaving and another guide was stepping in. I was really upset about this, but they explained to me that this was normal and it was to do with my own expansion. Wow. And it was the same being, but an upgraded being, therefore a completely different being. So White Spirit left and this white-winged, very large white-winged entity stepped in that was incredibly powerful but very loving, and I was aware that White Spirit was kind of still there, but this was something very different. This took a period of a few days. So I'm shutting the door, I'm not speaking to anyone, I'm completely ungrounded with this situation. If a friend called me, I'm like, I can't speak to you right now. You have no idea what's going on with me, and that kind of thing. I was kind of there. But finally this transition took place, and then I'm with this white-winged being. It was incredibly overwhelming. I'm so thankful for the training I had back then, because I did fall apart many times and not deal with it. And of course it was, rehearsal. Now we're in the showtime. I'm not falling apart and I'm dealing with it because it's even more intense now. This will be the case with anyone who's gone through this awakening period. These individuals that we call starseeds, they will have all been through something quite similar. So after a period of time, I was actually with a friend who was deeply spiritually aware, very esoteric and not New Age at all. In fact, he detested the New Age, to be quite honest with you. He was much more scientific, but very spiritual and esoteric in different ways, and a great teacher for me. And he just said, can you ask your guides something for me? Guides in the plural. I said, what do you mean, guides? I've only got one. And he just looked at me and said, oh, no, they're always a collective. I said, are they? And that stuck in my mind. And then after that conversation, a few days later, this morphing took place. It was like this sort of shadow going on behind this one white-winged being, and then there were loads of them, and I counted, and there were 9 predominant ones. There were other etheric visions, shadows behind them, but there were 9 that were more solid. And I just said, what's your name? And they told me how they couldn't pronounce, I wouldn't be able to pronounce their name. They tried to tell me what it was, and it's just completely unpronounceable, like a sort of a very high-pitched squeak. So, scream. So there's no way I could pronounce it. So I said, well, look, you've got white wings. There's 9 of you. You're a collective consciousness. How about I call you the white-winged collective consciousness of 9? And they were like, yeah, that's fine. I had no idea at that time when I was speaking to them that I would be out there with them and that I would be, well known. I might have chosen a better name for myself and for them, really. It was not planned in any way, apart from in 1993, I did have a vision of me sitting wearing headphones, talking to people all over the world, wow, predominantly in America. And I was really confused because I thought, well, I didn't even own a pair of headphones. I had some old pair lying around that I used to listen to my record player when I was a kid. That was it. No computer or anything. And I thought, is this some kind of ego in me, thinking I'm going to be speaking to people all over the world? But it was a very, very clear vision, and predominantly in America. So I was speaking to lots and lots of people. I mean, I knew that this was like in the thousands, in the millions. I was a bit sort of scared by that vision, to be honest. And part of me took it seriously and part of me didn't. And of course, that's occurred. I also saw a book as well, but I had no idea what that meant at the time. This again will have happened to the starseeds, to anyone taking a spiritual path. These things will happen. The way I'm speaking, this isn't a path that's just happened to me. this is a collective path. So, yeah, I called them the White-Winged Collective Consciousness of Nine. Fast forward to 2008, and they're talking to me quite intensely over a period of several weeks. I'd started learning about 2012, and people were saying it was the end of the world. And I was doing some research, and with me, I don't make any commitment about anything until I've actually got to a point where I think, right, all this is adding up. It's obviously correct, and then I have this knowing that this conundrum I'm looking at is correct. So I made this assumption, this opinion that that 2012, the end of the world, was correct. There was no other conclusion I could make given the research I was doing and the information that was coming from the Nine. And I remember really believing that you know, the end of the world was coming, and I remember sitting on my bed in a state of absolute horror and shock and depression, looking around at the world. And I remember looking at my little granddaughter and thinking, why this beauty and this creation, why would they just wipe it all out? And they let me go through this for about 4 days. My partner said to me, I'm really worried about you. You know, you're completely going insane. And I'm like, I know I am. And then when I'm really troubled, the Nine, which are all male, will step back, and then one female entity will step forward. I call her the White Goddess because she's purely white. I mean, literally snow white, like snow. And she sat down next to me and she said, it's not going to be like that. Let us show you how it will be. But they allowed me to suffer, if you like, simply because I now know that there were many people, and still are, believing in this end of the world scenario. And I needed to feel what it was like to be that shocked and frightened at the end of the world scenario. I needed to go through that. And so they allowed me to go through this for a period of about 3 or 4 days. I'd made the conclusion it was correct. I was right. The information was correct, but it was not to be interpreted as end of the world, as in destruction. And then they took me through a series of visions and lots of communication for a long time, showing me what was actually happening. And then one day around the same time, they just said very matter-of-factly in a conversation, do you remember when we told you it was a dress rehearsal? I said, yes, because I didn't expect to hear this again. And they said, well, now it's the show time. I'm like, what? What do you mean right now, like today? And they're saying, yes, not today, this time period. I'm like, okay, what do you want me to do? And they said, well, we need you to tell everyone. I said, tell everyone what? I said, do you mean you want me to tell everyone that I talk to you? And they said, yes. I said, really? Because I've never told anyone except my really close friends. There were even family members that didn't know. Best friends I'd known for years that didn't know. It was a massive secret to me. And I said, who do you want me to tell? And they said everybody. And, you know, I was really overwhelmed, and they pointed to the internet. So that's kind of the story. I then found YouTube. Well, I knew about YouTube, but I found a guy on YouTube, Ricer, who was doing these very weavy sort of beautiful kaleidoscope of weavy colors, and allowing his train of consciousness to just speak from him. And his material was amazing. And I said to my partner, if I did something like that, and this is interesting because I'd been with my partner around 10 years or a little bit less, and I had not channeled in front of him. He knew what I did, but I didn't channel in front of him because it just hadn't happened. We hadn't connected that way. So I said to him, if I bring some of my channeling forward, will you make a video? So it was a massively new thing for him as well, and a little bit concerning. So I was thinking, well, what if I start channeling and he, you know, doesn't like me anymore and he thinks I'm nuts? And of course, he made the videos and I started bringing forward the messages, and that was in 2008. It's now 10 years later. So wow. I've been on, on YouTube for 10 years.
And then how did your books fit into that whole thing?
So 2016, I sit down after receiving some information. The Nine were communicating to me about Masters of the Matrix, talking about the Masters of the Matrix and explaining to me who the Masters were and what the Matrix was, in response to a series of questions my partner was asking me about soul contracts. He basically said, is there such a thing as a soul contract? If so, what is it? Why would we even make one? Can we break them? I mean, you know, can they be changed? Are we chained to these soul contracts? You know, or is it some kind of freedom? He's bombarding me with all these questions because he didn't understand. He'd read this phrase somewhere, and I said, hold on, I don't know the answers to your questions. Let me bring the 9 in. So the 9 came in to speak to my partner to answer his questions, brought through all this information. And then 3 days later, I said to my partner, I'm going to ask the 9 to bring that information forward again and do a video for YouTube. And I'm going to call the video Masters of the Matrix. So I started to transcribe their information, as I always do, believing it was another video. And then this particular transcription, which I can always see beforehand, actually, is an energy sort of structure, which I now know is a monad. I would sort of decode that monad as I'm communicating with them. And this one was much more intense and more intricate, and it just went on and on and on, and was opening up to so many more concepts. And then I realized, well, there's no way I'm going to wrap this up in a 10-minute, 20-minute video. I realized then that it was a book. And so that was the first book in 2016, and that's this one here, Masters of the Matrix. And then in 2017, I deliberately decided I wanted to write a book, but I was just going for a conversation with the 9 to see where things would go. Had no idea that the material in this book would follow on from the last one. So it's like the 9 have planned, or from a higher dimensional point of view, or from the pre-incarnate point of view, or however you want to look at it, planned this. But the physical me didn't realize this. That's how it works with everybody, by the way. This is how it works. So 2016, Divine Architecture and the Starseed Template. And then the same thing kind of happened again in February this year. I released a video called Dark Deeds, Pole Shift, The Law of One, and I can't remember the other part of it, but it was basically a question. I asked the 9, why are the truthers being kicked off social media? Because at that time in February, some of the really big truthers were losing their platforms on Twitter and YouTube and everywhere. So I was asking the 9, why are they being kicked off? Are we as Starseeds going to lose our platforms? Are we not going to be able to speak and deliver this information? That channeling came forward, which is a video up on YouTube. And then in about 2 months ago, I think, just over, I asked the 9, I wanted to do an analysis of that particular channeling, as I felt it was really important to talk about why the truthers were losing their platforms and what it meant. And so I wanted to do an analysis, and I thought I'd turn that into a very small ebook, because I realized the analysis would be bigger than just a video. I've done analysis before of the transmissions, but usually just me speaking to the camera. So, and it'll take between 7 and 15 videos of about an hour long each one to analyze the 15-minute channeling. So I knew that this would be a small ebook. And then this one went on and on and on, and branched into completely different areas, into Stargate Ascension. And although the truth that information was touched on, I never did finish the analysis of that particular transmission. The 9 had other ideas. And this is The Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame, Sacred Mysteries of Stargate Ascension. And this was released for sale yesterday.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, so I'm very, very pleased about these books, and it's been a wonderful journey. This last one was crazy, and this is what I mean by the training, because I wrote that book in 5 weeks. These first 2 I transcribed in 3 to 4 months, and they're smaller. This is like twice the size, as you can see. Yeah. And it took me 5 weeks, because the intensity of the energy at the moment, as any starseed will tell you, and it was daily and nightly. I mean, can you imagine? Normally I get a break, you know, I'll sort of be doing normal 3D things, and I'll be getting information for a new video every few days, or, you know, once a week, or however. And this was every day, all day and all night for 5 whole weeks. So it was incredibly intense. All night long, they would be talking to me, and I'd wake up with not just one concept, not just one monad, but several. And I'd see them all. I'm like, how on earth am I going to decode all this? And I would just grab my laptop and start decoding them all into these different areas. And it really did blow my mind. And I said to them, I'm so glad you guys trained me back in 1993. And you know, because I wouldn't be able to do this right now. I would fall apart, because it was way more intense, but I was okay, because I know what to do now. And like I said, this is the journey the Starseeds are on. They're all they're all going through this. They're all going through this. Thousands of us, millions.
Yeah,
so is the starseed, is that would be like the first generation of like what we would now call like the indigo kids and stuff like that? Is there any connection there?
Yeah, all the indigo children are starseeds. All the crystal children are starseeds. But what's really interesting, all the truthers are starseeds. You know, and they're not following a new age path particularly. They're not sitting talking about rainbows and you know, emerald flames and diamond codes. A lot of them don't even like that. Like this guy I knew who was a great friend of mine, who he hated the new age. He just couldn't bear it. He didn't like the way that spirituality was presented, even though he spoke to channels like me, because he knew we had information. But he was, if you asked him, what are you? He would say, I'm a investigator, I'm a researcher, I'm a scientist, I'm an astrologer, and I'm a Kabbalist. But he would not ever subscribe to New Age. There's a lot of starseeds that, you know, the New Age repels them. And to be honest with you, I don't really I've never put myself in a New Age box and thought I am New Age. I realised that I am by virtue of the fact that I'm channeling and I am talking about rainbow light codes and DNA activation. But it's just an umbrella term, and it can be attacking, if you like, or targeting that's coming in from service to self structures, you know, whatever you want to call them, cabal, Illuminati, deep state, whatever, because they're seen as, you know, it's nonsense, it's pseudo science, that they're not really, you know, it's the truthers that are taking the hit, which is why I've been calling for unity between truthers and light workers, because truthers cannot do this on their own. They need us, and we can't do it on our own. We can't bring the deep state down with only this. It's got to be done on the third dimensional level. But you can't just do it on 3D either. We've got to go in on all the dimensional levels. So we're all needed together as a team, because they have that. They have multi-level.
Seems like they've got us pitted against each other right now.
Yeah, exactly. And I watched that video of yours where you were with that other guy on his radio show, and you were talking about the truth. Yeah, Jeff, and you were talking about the truthers and the, you know, the New Agers. And part of me kind of cringes at having to categorize us like that, because that's what they want. But you have to generalize to a certain extent. I mean, but there is a bunch of different groups that are all connected. Like, even if you look into the health and fitness or the biohacking community, where they're realizing that so much of this stuff has been unhealthy as well. And then there's the New Age community and the truthers. Like I feel like we straddle. I feel like we're the type of show that straddles a lot of that already. Like, we do touch on a lot of different topics, and I'm a little bit more New Agey than Darren, and like, I'm fine with people teasing me like that. But then we also
I'm fine with teasing them.
We also approach all these truther type things as well. I mean, but I don't really know what necessarily you mean by truther, but I mean, we do touch on all the, you know, the vaccine bullshit and the 9/11 stuff and all the main topics, but then there's a whole bunch of little stuff as well. So I do like that initiative of like trying to bring everybody together a little bit there and make sure that we are I mean, I don't know where you go at, how you describe that. Like, how do you get us all to have a coherent message? But I think the start of it is just to start talking about it, I think.
It's becoming more difficult than I envisaged. I just thought, yay, let's all just unify. You know, truthers, you're going to love us a lot, and we're going to love you a lot. I mean, I'm a truther as well. I mean, all the starseeds are. They just do it in a different way. Although I will go down into the 3D stuff and the political stuff more than the average starseed does. I mean, I say not starseed because, like I said, the truth is starseeds. And I agree with you. It's difficult to label everybody. When I say truther, it's a respectful term for people who are known as conspiracy theorists.
That's right. Yeah.
You know, and that's very wrong, because that suggests they're nutters that just believe any conspiracy going. A truther is someone searching for truth. So obviously that does actually encompass all of us. Yeah. And a starseed, these are individuals that have come here for this journey. They've incarnated here for this reason, and they each have different roles. So starseeds are not just New Age light workers. They are truthers and scientists and musicians. And I mentioned the gaming community. Many, many youngsters who are sitting gaming all day long on their games are starseeds. And the games, I'm not talking about perhaps violent ones and car crashes, but these fantasy games like World of Warcraft, that sort of stuff. These are activating games. I mean, if you're sitting there 24/7, you may have issues with it, but these are activating games. There's truth in there too. So there's different communities.
That's so funny. We were just talking about it before we got on.
Now you're encouraging these guys in their Dungeons and Dragons.
Yeah, well, before we got on with her, and I was talking to Brody here.
I've been trying to wheel that back
about the parallels between some of the stuff that we do in Dungeons and Dragons with like real life and the magic and the
massive and the same with fantasy fiction in books and films. I'm currently watching. You probably won't believe this, but I've never really watched the Marvel Cinematic Universe until like 2 weeks ago. The only one I was interested in was Thor, and I watched that. But we decided we would watch Marvel Cinematic Universe from the beginning. So I've never seen Iron Man or any of those.
Okay,
so we started watching them 2 weeks ago, and I cannot believe
the similarities, right? Yeah.
The disclosure in these films.
Yeah.
And my son said to me, you know, Mum, you wait till you get to Avengers Infinity. And I'm like, no, I can't wait. So we're sort of halfway through at the moment. All the films, watching them in order. We're on Captain America, Civil War. That's the next one.
Yeah.
But they're disclosure films. It's unbelievable. So you're looking at fantasy coming in on many levels. All of this, as I said, pre-planned, and we're sort of living it out, if you like, these different roles. So
speak about that, the timing. I do want to go back to the process of your channeling at some point, but let's continue on with this thing and speak to the change in our political climate. I mean, not necessarily getting too political, but how this is really shifting and people are like, there does seem to be a more awareness around the control system and how evil, I don't know if evil is the right term, but I mean, you know, when you talk about truthers, there's the whole pedogate thing as well. And I mean, there's a lot of stuff coming to light for people that I mean, I didn't expect it to be so intense. Get alt-right up in here? No, not about right and left, just about the elite and how controlling it is. Then it goes into the corporations and the political structure and the fake charities, and I mean, it just goes on and on and on. Like everything is a freaking illusion right now. Yeah,
because right and left is a little bit of a false construct, and because, you know, the cabal, if you like, will have operatives in both of those. So it's like, well, you all think you've got a choice. You choose between the left or the right, but we're in both. I mean, yes, they're predominantly left, but that's, you know, they still have the right as well. So it's like whoever you vote for. What I was shown, I mean, I've never been particularly interested or really even understood politics or physics or science or maths. I've always been more of a arty person than a sort of left-brained thinking person. So obviously when the Nine started to talk to me about all this stuff, but it's so intertwined, it's so very connected. You can't really take a spiritual path and truly be whole unless you're looking at everything. So, I mean, I do have people say to me, Magenta, why do you talk about politics? I've had people say you're losing your credibility by discussing Donald Trump.
Yeah.
And I don't think they seem to understand. They don't seem to understand that this is the third dimensional presentation of the shift. It isn't just happening on the 11th dimension. You know, we're not all just waking up to the diamond light codes and whizzing off into a ball of light. Yes, we're doing that, but it's all happening here in this reality. We need to look at all of it. So the first thing the Nine showed me was when it comes to this political shift, if you were to look at the Earth, say, as a flat disc, and I'm not meaning as if it were flat. That's a whole other issue. Whole other issue. The Nine have discussed that with me as well. That's not what I mean. I mean, if you were to just look.
Wait. You can't just gloss over. What did the Nine say about the flat Earth then?
Well, I can definitely come back.
Can we come back to that? Yeah, let's make a note to come back to that.
But I'm talking about countries and places energetically and what's happening. If you were to look at that construction as a flat disc, America is right in the middle. America is right in the very, very center of this. So this is energetic presentation. And if you imagine water going down a plug hole. So, you know, you let the water out the bath and it's going to swirl around slowly. And then when it gets to the center, it's really, really fast as it goes down the plug hole, isn't it? Yeah. I know there's a word for this, but I don't know what it is. So
centrifugal force?
Yeah, that's probably it. So America's right in the center. That means everything's really intense and fast there. And then the waves of intensity. So this is specifically political and financial. And the revealing of that which has been hidden. So it's all in America, and then it's filtering out into the rest of the planet. So we're all getting the backlash waves, depending on where we are. I'm in the UK, although we're going a bit intense as well at the moment. But that's kind of what they told me. And so I followed the political, not really in a big way, but I followed the political changes. And what I saw was when Obama and McCain were in the election, I could see the two timelines, and the energy was really on, from the Illuminati cabal point of view. McCain was the person. Is it McCain?
McCain, yeah.
McCain, yeah. The energy was on McCain, and the actual timeline there was a terrible trajectory. Obama was a better trajectory. So obviously I really, really hoped Obama would win the election at that time, because I could see the different timelines. I now realize it's because of what was yet to come, not what was happening there, is where it would lead in the future. And but I have to say that at that time, Obama had an energy that, you know, at the time you could think, well, maybe his energy, he will do something, and there seemed to be some
hope.
Yeah.
Oh,
hope,
I got sucked right into it. I remember where I was when that whole thing happened. I was like, yes, this is awesome. We are change. Like, was it We Are Change? Or
I don't know what it was.
What was it? What was his tag? Anyways, like I was sucked right in. I got all emotional. I probably even shed a couple tears that night. I was like, wow, this is amazing.
Did you do the same thing for Trudeau?
It was amazing, and it was awesome because of where it's led. Because had McCain got in, we're looking at a trajectory. We would always be able to change it, because it's all down to us. It's not an outside thing. It's not like, oh, if they get in to power, that's it, we're doomed. And if this person gets in, we're saved. It's not like that. The power is with us. But I'm looking at what the timelines were showing me. So when Obama got in, I was very pleased, because I could see that was not a trajectory for World War III. It was way on the sidelines, and there was some good things there. And then I saw very, very quickly, I mean, a matter of maybe 2 or 3 weeks, instead of this hopeful energy, this sort of endearing energy in a way, that, you know, there was some darkness there, but it wasn't that bad. It looked like it would be okay. And within 2 to 3 weeks, everything changed.
That quickly?
For me, it was that,
Wow.
And I just thought, oh my goodness, it was like, it was almost as though, in my opinion, that, you know, I don't want to, it's like, it's hot, it's difficult, because the 9 give me boundaries about what I can and can't say, but it's almost as though.
Well, you don't want to lose half your audience either, so.
No, it's not, it's.
That's what happened to us.
Yeah, it's not about that.
No, I'm just kidding.
It isn't about losing audience. I'll tell you what it's about. When you put something out, you are not just delivering information, you are creating.
Yeah.
And there are those within the service to self factions that are able to see those creations. So the 9 teach me to hold these boundaries when I speak. And so what I would say is that there was a compromising energy. If you like, Obama had some light and had some hope and was compromised. How? That's up to the listener to sort of research it. But it was still a good result, because it's taken us into this next pathway, and that obviously causes even more controversy. I mean, there's a huge, huge split. And unless you can actually, you won't understand what's going on politically right now if you see this from a third dimensional point of view.
That's right.
Because you are looking head on, and you're not looking above the energetic. You must go to 5D, the 5th dimension, at least, to view what is happening. If you start looking from the 3rd dimension, you will never get it. So you've got Hillary Clinton and you've got Donald Trump. And when I saw those two, and this is after the election, I was told to pay no attention whatsoever to the American election at all. I didn't even really know anything about either of these candidates. I knew Donald Trump had been in the news a bit. I remember seeing his wife in the papers a lot with her like new hairstyle and handbags and stuff, but that's kind of all I knew. It wasn't till after the election that the Nine said, now I can look. And so I looked at these two people, and I looked at Hillary and thought, oh, gosh, you know, she's like well in the cabal, groomed from day one to take this role. And, I saw that it was a good thing that she had not won. And then I looked at Donald Trump, kind of expecting to see another cabal member that maybe had a bit of light around them. And bang, I'm like, oh my goodness, he's not in the cabal at all. This guy is completely independent.
Wow.
So that was wonderful to see, because I'm like, how did he even get in?
Yeah.
And then I looked a bit further, and what I saw was there was some attempt from the people who wanted Hillary in. There was some attempt to sort of hijack the voting system, and that was successful somewhat. And even with the attempt to hijack the voting system, Trump still got in. And the reason being is people kept their feelings secret.
Yep.
They didn't tell. So the polls or whatever would never have shown what was really going on in the hearts of the people. And that still happens now.
Yeah.
I actually have had people contact me, and get this, I've had people contact me who are married and they haven't even told their partner that they voted for Trump, because they're that secret with it. Because you say that you voted for him, and that you like him and you like what he's doing, and you are attacked viciously. And that attack is coming in from lots of different areas. Yeah. One is deliberate cabal members who are kind of paid or missioned to go out there and, you know, put Trump down on every social media platform you can find. Obviously, you've got the controlled media system that are, you know, only telling us what they want us to know.
Yep.
And then you've actually got people who are believing the false narrative that is presented in media and on social media. And then you've got the genuine people who really don't know, because they are seeing things from third, maybe even fourth dimensional perspective. And what they're looking at is thinking, well, look, Trump is a bit of a clown, and he's narcissistic, and he's really loud, and he said some really gross things about women in the locker room 20 odd years ago or whatever. That makes him really, really horrible, and we don't want him as a president. Now, in an ideal world where there's no cabal, no control system, they're right. They're right. He's not got the honor and the absolute ethics in his presentation. I won't say it's not there at all. In his presentation, to be a president of a country. But we're not living in a world that is not controlled. We're living in a world where there's a cabal, and he's independent. He got in through the back door somehow. But if you look further, and this has come from me, I've wanted to see things, and sometimes I've just been sent there without knowing. I've actually been in a remote viewed, and Trump does have honor. He does present with this sort of mild narcissistic personality. I can understand that, but of course he needs that. There's no way somebody personality that is very sort of, it's almost as though he's thinking, right, this is me, and yeah, okay, so if it's narcissistic, it's like, this is me, and nobody is going to attack me, because, you know, I'm going to get affronted by that. Everything comes back to me. If you want to take that as a narcissistic personality trait. But what he does is he adds America in with himself. Do you see what I'm saying? It's like, this is me and I am America. Therefore, he's narcissistic regarding America. He will defend America as if it's his own self. And that is why he's the greatest person.
Cabal. I mean, it does feel like it's almost a spiritual warfare at that higher level, and almost the, you know, the deep state versus the, what's the other, there's another name for the...
Shallow state?
No, like the other side of the deep state. There's like the Trump cabal or whatever. Like people, what
Democrats?
No. You're not helping at all. So I can't remember like the. Anyways, but yeah, I mean flip flop back and forth.
The white hats.
I don't see another cabal. The cabal is there are different factions that don't actually present as if they are related in any way, but they are. It's a hive mind movement that can present as independent factions, and you'll never actually connect the dots that they are actually connected. So it might look like there's more than one,
right?
But there's one. They're all, because this is about energetics. It's like saying, well, are there two service to selves? No, there's one service to self frequency, but it manifests in many, many different sections. And there's a service to others frequency manifesting in many, many different sections, because we're in, dualism here.
Yeah.
But, recently I remote viewed, and this wasn't intentional. It was the night of the 31st of May into the 1st of June. And I just found myself there. And I witnessed Donald Trump. And what I actually saw was, he had to make some kind of decision, and there were many ways he could go, and there were all these other people around him, and loads and loads and loads of starseeds there. And many people woke up the next morning feeling that they had done something big the night before, because I spoke to lots of people about this after putting out a Facebook status. So lots of people wrote to me. There was a great relief, and there was a big shift that had taken place. The Nine called this the New World Treaty, almost as if a treaty was made. What I actually saw, yes, I saw Donald Trump make this treaty with other people as well, who were also leaders, but he was like the central character within this, and all the starseeds were there, and there were some cabal there, but they couldn't get anywhere near this. And when I saw Trump make the decision, there were many ways he could have gone, and he could have chosen something that was not in integrity, and he would have been rewarded, if you like, from another faction.
Yeah.
But he didn't make decisions based on what he could get. He makes decisions based on what is right for who he is as a person. And as I said, he includes America in that. It's like, I am Donald Trump and I am America, which, might be a bit narcissistic. It's like, but it's what we need. So he makes a decision for America. And of course, this filters out into the world. It's not just an American decision. He's making a decision for planet Earth. And when I watched him, obviously I can't see what the decisions were or what the treaty was. What I could see is the energetic frequency of the decision-making process, and every single decision was absolutely in alignment with integrity.
Wow.
And I couldn't believe it. And I'm just like, wow.
All this stuff is pretty funny. But I mean, it's pretty risky in a way, but
massively risky. I know, but this is the thing: when you're an indigo, you speak out.
Yeah.
And yes, it's risky for me because obviously people hear me speak and think, "Oh my goodness, Magenta, that's it. Unsubscribing, not listening to your videos again. I'm not going to be buying your books." This is not about people watching my videos, and it's not about people buying my books.
Yeah.
It's not about me dividing people into Trump or anti-Trump. It's simply about me being a conduit, which is a channel for higher dimensional information, B, someone who's able to remote view and be psychic.
Yeah.
All I can give you is my perspective. I'm not saying I'm right.
Yeah. But there's also the risk that you mentioned, like, you approach the topic of YouTube channels, or they're, been censored. I mean, do you worry about that at all?
No, I don't worry about it at all, because I know that there will always be a backdoor for every single starseed. So if you get kicked off one platform, there will be a way that you will get back to being able to deliver your message. The only way that they could actually shut the starseeds down is to actually shut down the entire internet, and they cannot do that because they need the internet for their own agenda, and they need it massively. If they shut the internet down, they completely cut off their nose to spite their face, kind of thing. And the thing is, this is what the Nine mean when they say, there's one of my videos where the Nine actually address the cabal in the channeling, in the transmission, and they say,
which video is that, do you know?
It's the video where the image is of a chessboard. I think it's the dissolution of the process of the veils. It might be the one about the Illuminati. I mean, I can't remember the exact name of it, but there's a chessboard, and the reason why we use the chessboard, because they used the analogy of a chess game, and they say, you have checkmated yourselves. I didn't know what that meant when they said this. I thought, how have they checkmated themselves? It's not just the internet, it's other stuff. But what the Nine since have said to me is, they created these systems that they could use to control, you know, the world, if you like, the planet. And those very systems are now being used by the starseeds and the truthers, etc., etc. So they're using their own systems without realizing, or some of them may realize, and they can't shut the systems down that they created because they're using the systems. And one of those systems is the internet. And the Nine say that everything's flipping back. So there's a negative seed point and a negative intention and a negative trajectory. And that is of a predominantly negative frequency. Then these negative seed points and negative trajectories, they work. They like work and they create the negative outcome that was intended or something similar. But when a planetary system is predominantly of a positively polarized vibration energetically, that negative trajectory cannot hold. It's flipping into positive because everything's going positive. And the reason why we have a predominantly positively polarized frequency is because of the starseeds. That's why the truthers, who can actually, without realizing, lend energy to the service to self groups through anger, hatred, fear. You know, if you've got truthers saying, right, Cabal, I'm going to get you lot, you know, you're going down, you know, that kind of thing, they can lend energy to them because they feed on that. So you've got the starseeds, the light workers that are coming in from love, compassion, unity, forgiveness. You know, we forgive the Cabal. We are, you know, which is a big one.
Mm-hmm.
People say, what do you mean you forgive them? Well, look at what they've done. What they've done to the children of Earth. How can you forgive them? The answer is we cannot make changes on this planet without forgiveness, because it's not just an emotion, it's a frequency, it's code, it's a code, and we need to use those codes. The starseeds, the light workers, that's what they are doing. They're holding that frequency. They've created this positive polarization so that you truthers, when you come in with your positive intentions, they are going right in there and they're working as long as you get the balance right. If the truthers attack head on, they're going to lose their platforms and they're going to be targeted because then they're not going above. So the truthers can learn from the light workers, but some of the light workers have floated off to the new world and they're sitting there having a picnic with their rainbows and unicorns and they don't want to know what's going on here. We need them to come back individually, and then we unify as a collective and we can help one another. But I've actually been involved recently in, you know, practically assisting with this unification between truthers and light workers. And it is proving more difficult than I envisaged that it would be. I didn't think it would be quite so difficult, but there is a way it can be done. Well,
it's hard to tease out who's been compromised in all these groups. I mean, I feel like that's kind of part of the problem, is there's a lot of disinformation out there as well. The true truthers and the true light workers, like, it's probably fairly easy. You could probably, you know, bring them together fairly easy, but it's the dissension among the ranks that's there on purpose, I think, which is the difficulty in trying to tease that out of there. So what are some of the other things you think people should do to come together? Like, you know, you mentioned the negativity and the attacking. And I totally agree with you. It's the forgiveness. It's like what that guest, that show that I really loved with Greg Doyle.
Greg Doyle?
And he was in the astral state, like for a week-long thing, going back and forth and attacking this evil entity. And as soon as he brought it back to his heart, and I think forgiveness was a part of that, that's when that he got out of that situation. And I truly believe that forgiveness is the key.
Yeah, and gratitude is even more important. You have to be thankful. It's like saying thank you for the Cabal. I mean, how many people can do that? Thank you for being here. Thank you for the things you've done. It's not a nonsensical emotion without having any substance. It's a frequency.
They can measure it with gratitude. They can measure people in gratitude. This is the new science and stuff in the health and wellness community, where if you go into a gratitude meditative state, like, you can measure the difference in your I can't even remember what it is they're measuring, but it's positive.
I bet.
Yeah.
Sounds super
it's
positive.
It's either your heart or your head or something.
Well, the thing is, you can't just take forgiveness and gratitude as an emotion on its own. It's got to be integrated forgiveness and integrated emotion. And what that means is you take the stance of a justice warrior, an indigo warrior, you know, a defender of the realm, a knight of the round table. You take those energies as well. You ground those energies. So it's like, I'm going to hold my sword high, and I'm going to forgive you, and I'm going to be compassionate, and I'm going to be in gratitude for you, but I hold my sword high. But you don't get your sword and chop someone's head off with it. You hold it high. It's a symbol. It's a symbol. It is not a tool for destruction. This is the energy we must find collectively.
Yeah, I like it. So
you were saying, you were just saying earlier about not knowing who is
the dissenters among you
know, which person is kosher, which person is genuine. I've spoken to the Nine about this as well, and what they tell me is there's a massive lesson in discernment going on right now, right across the board. Why are we being given a lesson in discernment? The reason being is when you discern, you use all your faculties and you actually strengthen the spiritual or energetic systems of the body. So you actually upgrade the solar plexus chakra, if you like. Your gut feeling gets stronger. You open the heart chakra because your intuition gets stronger. You activate the third eye chakra because your insight, your clairvoyant sight gets stronger. Everyone is being upgraded, and there has to be a way that is done. So if you can't discern through research, you can find information through research, but your own discernment. This person, say we've got here, you know, person A and person B. Is this person A right, or is this person B right? They're not going to say to me, "Oh, it's B. He's the one that's right." They're going to guide me into making that decision myself, and I'm going to work this out for myself, and I'm going to look at all the evidence available energetically and wherever I can find it, and think, "I think it's B." Then they will either confirm or give me more information to be able to ascertain. And at the moment, I'm in the process of trying to work out whether these insiders in the truth of communities are genuine. Are they from a supportive alliance, light, or are they from the cabal? I'm talking about, like, you know, Q, and there's a new one that's just come on the scene for the UK in the last few days. So the Nine aren't going to give me the answers, but they are going to teach me how to discern and give me the tools so that I can come to a conclusion. That's what we're all doing, basically. Every single one of us is doing that. Yeah,
but it's a challenge. That's the word I was looking for the other day, is the alliance. Yeah. A little bit ago is the alliance. But that's hard for us, like hard for me to discern that, because like you said, you can do all the research, but I mean, a lot of that is hard to sift through. It's disinformation, and my head is full of biases and, you know, past experiences and thoughts swirling around. Like, how do you put all that aside and go into your energy system or whatever and tell? I mean, it's difficult for us to get to that point.
So that's where you take all that information that you have, which is useful, and you have to look at whether you're being distracted. That's a massive clue. Is this situation distracting me from my goal? You need to know your mission, first of all. You also need to be clear. You need to be clear of trauma. If you're not completely and utterly clear, but clear to a point where you can function. If you are covered in, you know, shadow traumas, that will confuse you so much that you're unable to discern.
Right. So you mean personally distract? To check whether you're personally distracted, or whether that societal thing or that information is distracting, like a higher level distraction, or personally distracted?
Well, all of these, but you would look at your mission and you would think, right, this is my mission, this is my role, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Is this a distraction, or is it part of my mission? Is it complementing my mission? Right, okay. Completely taking me away from it.
Oh, okay.
If it's completely taking you away from it, utterly, and you are not feeling good, and it's okay to be that way for a while, a few days, while but if you're there a long time, then that's not your path. This is what the Nine were doing with these books that they've written. They're starting off with the assisting you to become clear and work through the shadows and the traumas, and then get your matrix in a place of sovereignty, which means immunity to hijacking. Once you're immune from hijacking, that's why I'm not worried about speaking about this. I know where my boundaries are and what I can and can't say, and I'm not worried. And if I lose my YouTube channel, then, you know, then I do. But, you know, you find sovereignty, you find trust, and you're not going to find it in the third dimension. It's higher than that. So then you would go into the heart. You would take all this information, assuming you're clear with the shadow and you found your immunity and your strength. You would then go into all the information. So you're going to be getting information from many sources, because we're in a time period. Not only are we in this collective lesson in discernment, we're in the time period the Nine called the deluge. It's like a tidal wave. That's why many starseeds, many light workers are getting images of tidal waves engulfing them. It's metaphoric for the wave of information is coming in on all levels. You're getting downloads, uploads, insights, psychic information. You are seeing things on social media. You are reading things wherever you go. The deluge is everywhere. So you're being engulfed with information. So you look at everything that you can assimilate. You look at all this information, and you analyze with the mind, but then you take that and go. And there are many methods to do this. This is just one method. Go into the heart. And one method that the Nine teach me, which is so simple and so effective, is learning how to use what they call the vertical pillar of light, also known as Excalibur, the sword of truth. So this is the Excalibur Codex. It is a fail-safe immunity program that has been placed in the energetic fields of all the starseeds before they incarnate. It cannot be hijacked. There has to be these agreements made with the group soul aspect, if you like, on both sides, in both negative and positive, to keep balance there. So you have this system within starseeds that can be hijacked, but the Excalibur Codex cannot. And the Excalibur Codex, there's many layers to this. It's all in my new book. But the Excalibur, if you imagine that Excalibur is a sword, it's also the rod and the staff in the inside the Ark of the Covenant. It's the same thing. It is your trajectory that is like a pillar of light. And you stand within that, and this is like it's kind of like a resonance field. It's like a truthometer. It's like an inner lie detector. So your name, what's your first name?
Graham.
Right, and that's your birth name, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you actually say to me right now, my name is Graham, and you must make it a statement. My name is Graham.
My name is Graham.
Okay. So how do you feel? How do you feel when you say, my name is Graham? How do you feel when you say it?
I feel good.
Okay. Now I want you to say, my name is Peter.
My name is Peter.
And how do you feel when you say that?
Weird.
Yeah. So that's like very simple. So that's a really simple, really basic way of doing this. What I'm saying
like a calibration in a way, right? Sort of calibrate the difference between.
It's like kinesiology, but with your voice. And the thing is, the reason why it works, if you're clear and you are not covered in shadows and you are not hijacked and attacked and you haven't got implants and.
Uh-oh.
Bum, 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 bum.
Here we go again with the,
this
Oh, there we go.
Sorry, we've lost your audio for a second here.
The interwebs.
Is it our internet, do you think? Oh, no.
Knows what is true and what is not, because you are tapping into a quantum field where everything that's ever happened, everything that's happening now in any timeline and in any possibility or
We're losing our connection here, Magenta. I'm not sure if you can hear us or not. She wouldn't be able to hear us.
It's not working one way.
Seems to be working on that one still.
Uh-oh.
You have no audio either.
Okay.
Though.
Oh,
You need to do the work first.
Magenta. Sorry, we just lost you for a couple minutes.
Me?
We lost you. We lost you at the quantum part.
Okay.
When you're looking at everything that's happened, everything that will happen, like getting that from the quantum. Yeah, could you just...
Yes, you're in a quantum field with the DNA structure, so you're looking at everything that's ever happened, everything that's happening now in all timelines and all probabilities, and everything that ever will happen. So that field is known to you at that level. So as long as you are clear of shadow and of trauma, and you have become immune and you've taken that sovereignty, and you have not floated off and you are remaining anchored within the third dimension, you then have the tools to be able to use this discernment. Okay, that makes sense. So how do you, I mean, I don't know how much time we have to dig into this, but how can you summarize maybe some steps? And I don't know if you've written this in your books or not, but to how to get rid of the trauma, how to clear yourself a little bit of that? Yes, I can. I mean, I'll just go to one chapter in Masters of the Matrix, and there are 4 steps basically, going through this very basically. The first step to dealing with trauma is acknowledgement. You acknowledge the trauma. Yep. If you don't acknowledge it, then you can't work through it. You need to know it's there. So you do whatever it takes to find out what is there. If it means counseling, if it means therapy, healing, massage, swimming, yoga, eating a raw food diet, meditation, whatever it takes to acknowledge. Okay. So acknowledgement, and you can do this by, you can create, an entity from this. So say you're feeling fear, but you don't know why. Name the fear. I feel fear. Okay, so that's the first step. The second step is gratitude. You have to get to this point, and this is like not easy work. It's not easy work. I understand that. It's a massive delving deep into yourself. But that's why so many light workers will say, work on yourself. You hear that and you think, what does that mean, work on yourself? It means nothing. We're trying to take the cabal down. What do you mean work on yourself? I haven't got time for that. But unless you do it, you can't get there. So the next step is gratitude. And it's like, it's so grateful for this fear. Thank you to the fear. And that's hard. But gratitude changes the fear, because what you are doing here is you're changing the energy. If you see your energetic matrix as a large database or computer, you feed code into this computer, and this code is a 6th dimensional computer database, if you like. It's a structure, it's geometric structure, and the code you feed it filters down into the 3rd dimension and creates an energetic match. It's called the law of attraction, but it's presented through geometry and through the 6th dimension instead of through visualization, which is just as good, but some people just don't resonate with the new age kind of law of attraction thing. Yeah. So it's just another way of explaining it. So what you do is, when you've got shadow trauma buried, you're constantly feeding codes of trauma into that matrix and creating more of the same. So you end up in the dark night of the soul, or into a negative spiral. The minute you acknowledge, that changes. Because no longer do you have fear, buried fear, you have acknowledged fear. So that becomes a different code. And then you go to gratitude. Oh my goodness, that's very different. No longer do you have fear, you have acknowledged fear and gratitude of it. That then creates more codes in your reality for you to be grateful for discovering these traumas. And that becomes evident in your everyday life, everywhere you go. It shows up like magic. The next step is analysis. So you analyze this trauma. Why is it there? Why do you feel fear? What's the reason for it? Why did this happen? It's deep work, and if you need a partner to go through the work with you, then go for that. And the final step is integration. You integrate these emotions and these feelings and these new discoveries, then you've completely changed the code. You might not have got rid of the fear entirely. You no longer have fear as an entity attacking you or infiltrating you, or allowing you to be vulnerable to infiltration from 4th dimensional entities, AI or cabal, or whatever you want to call it. What you have is integration of fear. So your life becomes integrated. So I can't sort of obviously go through the entire methods, but they're the steps. So whatever it takes to do those steps, and this book is only like so that's $4 or $5.
Yeah, which one is that? Which book is that again?
That's the first one.
Oh, your first book. Okay,
yeah,
that's cool. Yeah.
Step.
Yeah, no, that's a good summary. It makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah.
That's about matrix awareness. You become aware that you are a matrix. You are an energy system. It's not matrix used in the same term that many use the matrix.
That's funny. I was gonna mention that earlier on. It's your own matrix, right? Not
if you like, there are two matrices. One's organic, and it's natural, and it's created from source, God, the creator. And one is an infiltration. It is a false screen. It's an inverted system. And that's the one that's created by service to self, energetics, extraterrestrial, and ultra-dimensional consciousness structures, etc., and cabal, whatever you want to call it. It's multi-layered, which is why we need to be multi-layered. So you become aware of that matrix system that's you. It's actually a toroidal field around you. It's also known as the Merkaba. It's, there's many names to call this structure. And the 9 start off very, very basically. When I wrote this, I didn't understand it. I had to read this book. When I channeled it, I read it through 6 times before I could even understand this material myself. And they're telling me it's basic. I'm like, what? So that's matrix awareness, and then matrix mastery. That's why you become a master of the matrix. Mastery over your matrix, because if you have mastery over your matrix, which is sovereignty, your matrix is everything. We're all one. Therefore, you have mastery over your entire reality as an individual consciousness structure, because you are the only incarnated individual in existence. Everyone else is just another you in another timeline. What we're actually doing here is all becoming integrated and individualized at the same time. And that's known as ascension, which is, again, an off-putting word for people who don't like the New Age. Call it collective integration. There's a reason we're doing this, and it's not just about taking down the cabal. It's actually natural. It's as natural as the sun shining in the morning, going down at night, and the moon coming out. It's a natural natural cycle. It happens to all planets, all galaxies. It happens to all cosmoses. It's natural and normal. It's creation itself.
How long are we in the deluge process for here?
Oh wow, that's a good question.
Couple weeks or
a couple weeks more. We're getting kind of we want things to move on a little bit.
Oh gosh, it's more than 2 weeks. We are right. What's actually happening?
Couple
with
months.
Deluge? It's like many more than started with information, and they don't need to discern or analyze where we are. But when you look collectively, no one's asked me this question, so I will look. I mean, the deluge, it's a good thing because it is waking us up. It's helping us analyze. But we're really slap bang in the middle of it right now, massively. But at the same time, we're in the indigo revolution, which is when the warriors take their power and hold their sword up and say, no more. This stops now, Cabal. We've had enough. But we forgive you, and we're in gratitude for you, but we don't need your level of polarity anymore to show us who we are. It can have a different kind of polarity now. That's where we need to be, rather than, let's get them all, It's got to be an integrated warrior, knight of the round table energy. It's not, and that's where it's so difficult for the light workers and the truthers to come together, because the truthers are in a battle, they're in a war, and the light workers will run a mile from anything that holds the energy of battle or war, because what you take on energetically creates an intention. And we know that we cannot do our job if we're in a war or battle, because that's duality, and we must embrace unity. However, if we only embrace unity, we are no longer in duality, and we are just as lost to the overall assistance that's needed on this planet than if we were in a battle. So we need to embrace the fact that we're in a battle or a war, but we need to find ways to upgrade that. So an army becomes warriors, you see. A fight becomes holding the sword of truth high, with the Knights of the Round Table stood next to us. That's why this is the Excalibur Codex. The Excalibur Codex is the codex for the Indigo Revolution.
Wow, it's hard to keep that, because we go through this, and like Darren and I are both going through this on different personal waves and stuff, where we're you know, ignoring the kind of the social medias and sort of going into our own inner work a little bit more. And then, but it is hard when we talk about all these topics to separate, not get dragged down into that negativity and the fight, you know, when you're approaching these conspiratorial things. So I find myself constantly flipping back and forth between resentment and anger on one hand, or frustration, and then just flipping back to the side that you're talking about. So
which is completely normal,
yeah,
and that's
important.
where many people are. It's completely normal, and it must be integrated. You know, that's why the New Age have a bad name, because a lot of people do not integrate these emotions. They transcend them.
Yeah.
They must be integrated. It's like I've actually spoken to other healers who will say to their clients, "Oh, don't feel fear. Greater to have fear." What you need to do is say, "You know what? I feel fear." That's why you acknowledge it.
Yeah.
And you are right to feel anger, fear. You are right to be horrified. Of course you are. But if you stay in that energy, you're no good to anyone. So you must integrate it.
Yeah, that's good advice.
That's the indigo revolution. That's why we're in the deluge. And the deluge will stop when we are at critical mass for integration.
Which may not be 50% or anything. It may just be a small percentage. Who knows what that is? No, it doesn't have to be
50%.
I don't know what the percentage is. I must 50. Say it isn't about the amount of people actually.
Exactly,
it's about
the energy, right? Yeah.
Of it, but we're not really anywhere near critical mass for integration when you look at the truther community along with the light worker community. So the light workers but then a lot of the light workers need to come back down. Like I said, some of them have flitted off to, you know, the new earth on their unicorn, and they're like, I don't care what you lot are doing, I'm off. Yeah. And we need them to come back and help us.
Yeah.
You know.
So they should, on that note, should the light workers and the indigos, should they be teaming up with like some of the religious sides as well? Because I actually heard an interesting take on the second coming of Jesus having more to do with that integration than anything else.
We need to team up with every single person who is not Cabal. That's who we need to team up with. That's what we need to do.
Yeah,
I think
and we can. We have ultimate power when all those groups, regardless of, they can still be Christians, they can still be Buddhists and Hindus, New Age, whatever, or atheists, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
We are a united team, every single one of us.
Yeah.
The Cabal have hijacked this reality at every level.
Yeah.
And we must team up.
Yeah. Wow.
There you have it.
Wow, that's awesome. That's probably a good spot to probably wrap it up.
Yeah, I think that's about as good as any. We're coming up on time.
I'll get off my soapbox now.
No, that's fantastic. I mean, I really appreciate it. Makes sense to me. Do you have anything? I'll put your website in the show notes, and I think you've kind of talked about where most of your work is. There's all tons of YouTube stuff. Your books are there. Your website's there. Is there anything else we're forgetting?
Well, only to say thank you so much. I absolutely appreciate these opportunities to speak. I just also like to say to anyone listening that please don't be upset if I can't respond to you personally. I'm getting tons and tons of messages right now, and I'm absolutely spending a lot of time, speaking to people, and I want to be there for everyone. But obviously, there's not enough hours in the day. So just to say, I love you all. We are a team. We are unified, regardless of what your beliefs are. And we will do this. I've seen it. I can see, and many can see, the reality where the Cabal are, to be honest with you, they are so changed from how they were. I mean, things are looking good, really. It might not look that way on the third dimension, but they do not have the power that they had. We already have a positively polarized energetic system. Yeah. So we're doing really well. So I would say, I love you all and keep up the good work.
Awesome. That's a great way to finish it off.
Bingo bango.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Good chatting with you.
Thank you.
All right.
Thanks so much, guys.
Okay, take care. Okay.
You too.
Okay,
bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
In this channeled transmission, I enter into an expansive, transformative and activating exploration of interdimensional dialogue. discussing the mechanics of Stargate ascension. This cutting-edge information holds key codes, maps and coordinates for the starseeds on Earth, as they go through this process of DNA reconstruction and regrouping of cosmic memory themselves. The significant codex of information is downloaded to the reader, as they, through this sacred text, are called by the Dragon, Excalibur, Crystalline Light Geometry, Atlantis, and the Emerald Flame. I am so very pleased to present my new book, The Infinite Helix and the Emerald Flame,